You changed jobs and nobody marked it. You moved cities, ended a relationship, became someone quietly different, and not once did another human being stand in front of you and say out loud, "You have crossed into something new." So you keep functioning, keep performing adulthood, while some part of you waits for a confirmation that never arrives. That waiting has a name, and in a moment you'll hear exactly what your ancestors built to end it. A deliberate, witnessed threshold most humans used to walk through, and almost nobody walks through now. But the deeper turn is what that threshold was actually curing. By the end, you'll understand the precise, ancient mechanism for closing that gap yourself, in one honest conversation with one person who matters. It starts, as these things always did, at the edge of a village. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a village at dawn, elders forming a circle around you, the air thick with smoke and silence. This wasn't a birthday or a diploma, it was a threshold, built and witnessed on purpose, where elders confirm something out loud. You are no longer who you were, and now you are one of us. Moments like this happened across most societies for most of human history. The anthropologist Arnold van Gennep, writing over a century ago, gave this pattern a name, the rite of passage, and noticed it showed up almost everywhere humans lived. Van Gennep broke it into 3 parts. First, separation. You're pulled out of ordinary life, sometimes physically removed from home. Then a middle stage, strange and unstable, where you're neither your old self nor your new one. And finally, reincorporation. You're brought back, changed, and the group says so. That middle stage is the part that matters most here, because it's the part modern life quietly deleted. You still get separated from childhood, you just never get formally brought back in. You're stuck, without knowing it, in the second stage. Decades later, the anthropologist Victor Turner picked up that middle stage and gave it its own name, liminality. A threshold state. Not this, not yet that. Turner studied it in tribal initiations, where young people were sent off, stripped of status, sometimes literally marked on the body, and he noticed something specific. The discomfort of that stage wasn't a flaw in the ritual, it was the point. Liminality was supposed to be temporary, intense, and witnessed. It was a tunnel with a known exit, built by people older than you who had already walked through it themselves. Here's the reframe worth sitting with. Your ancestors weren't just marking milestones for tradition's sake. They were closing a psychological loop that, left open, produces exactly the restlessness you might be feeling right now. The sense that you've never fully proven who you are to anyone, including yourself. Turner's liminal stage was designed to end. Yours may never have started properly, or never ended at all. You changed jobs, cities, relationships, even beliefs, and each time, no one stood in front of you and confirmed the crossing. So some part of you is still, quietly, in between. It's worth asking yourself honestly, when was the last time someone who mattered to you looked at you and said, out loud, "You have become this"? Not congratulated you, witnessed you. If nothing comes to mind, you're not broken, you're under-ritualized, which is a very different thing. It might be worth sitting with that question in the comments. What's the closest thing you ever had to a moment like that? Naming it tends to be the first useful step, long before fixing anything. In small-scale societies, anthropologists have studied, from parts of sub-Saharan Africa to indigenous Australia to Melanesia, initiation wasn't optional decoration. In some documented rites, a young initiate was sent alone into the bush for days, then returned, hollow-eyed and silent, only to be washed, renamed, and welcomed back by the whole village as someone new. Skipping that process didn't just mean missing a ceremony. It meant the community had no clean way to treat you as an adult. You'd remain, socially, a kind of ghost, present but unratified. That's the uncomfortable mirror for you. Modern life still expects you to function like a ratified adult, while quietly removing the mechanism that used to do the ratifying. This is why the ache you can't name doesn't feel like sadness exactly, and it doesn't feel like anxiety exactly either. It feels closer to suspension. Turner described liminal people as existing betwixt and between. His actual phrase, neither fish nor fowl, invisible to the very structure they belong to. That's a precise description of standing in a new city, a new job, a new stage of adulthood, and quietly wondering if anyone would notice or care if you disappeared from it tomorrow. Your ancestors built a cure for that specific invisibility. The cure wasn't comfort, it was witness. In ritual after ritual across very different cultures, the essential ingredient was never the pain, the isolation, or the symbolism alone. It was other people, deliberately present, agreeing together that a change had occurred. Belonging, in this older framework, was never something you decided about yourself in private. It was something conferred, out loud, by people whose opinion the group trusted. That single design choice is the piece almost entirely missing from how you're expected to grow up now. Here's the turn worth remembering. You don't lack maturity, you lack a moment. Somewhere along the way, the ceremony got quietly stripped out of adulthood, but the human need for it didn't get stripped out with it. That mismatch, a liminal need in a ritualless world, is a strong candidate for the restlessness you felt but never had a word for. It's not a personal failing, it's an inherited design flaw in modern life, one your ancestors solved with something as simple as a circle of people, and a moment they refused to let pass unnoticed. So the question isn't really whether you've earned belonging. You likely have, many times over, in ways nobody stopped to confirm. Your ancestors fixed this with a simple mechanism, a witness, chosen deliberately, who spoke the change out loud. You can borrow that same mechanism today. Find one person who matters to you, tell them what you've crossed, and ask them to say it back. It doesn't need to be ancient or elaborate. It needs to be real, and it needs to be said out loud, to someone, by someone. What would your version of that moment look like? Say it in the comments.